Hey, welcome to Stewarding the Wealth Transfer. It's Larry, and I just thought I'd check in. It's kind of an end of October update. I am convinced that God is so excited for what's coming. And I remember when I heard Robin Bullock say at the beginning of this, around 2020, he goes, "You're going to see exposure that you've never believed, that you've never known." And I'm going to talk to you about some of the outlandish things that I now think are true. And I don't know, how much you believe it, but I think there are underground caves and passageways where people have been kept against their will. And I do think that there's organ harvesting and child trafficking in ways that, are unfathomable for us. I've heard and read about some of the things that are going to come out with what happened in the Sean Combs, parties. And I think it's going to unify the world against this dark, elite situation that we've got. I'm totally convinced now that the wealth transfer is going to happen during this 4 years of prosperity. That's going to be the same time that we have an open heavens across America. And I'm really, really excited about what's going to happen. But let's talk about some of the things that I think are very interesting and different than what I would have thought. One of the guys who I actually tried to reach out to, his name was Drew, and he had a dream where he repeated this event, and he was in a big city, probably New York or Chicago or something. He was with other CEOs or, important people at a high-level meeting way up in a skyscraper, and they all went and ran to a safe at one point, and they grabbed three things. They grabbed cash first, then I think they grabbed silver, but it could have been the crypto wallets, and then the silver. And then they went downstairs, and there were soldiers on the streets. And the first time he didn't get out fast enough, and it was like a video game, and so he got to redo it. And so the next time he got up before everybody else did, because he was reliving this thing, like trying to work with these circumstances. And, like a video game, when he was improving how he could respond, because he knew he needed to get down on the street and get out of town sooner. And I can't remember the order, if he said crypto or silver was first, but it was interesting because I'm pretty sure he said that the first thing they wanted was cash. And why would they want cash? Because I don't think that the ATMs are going to work. So this isn't the time to have all your money in the bank. Do I have all my money out of the bank? No, I don't. But I'm intentionally having liquid resources here available, protected, hidden, so that I have, access to stuff. And I have a generator, and I have some extra fuel on hand. I have a full, freezer. And, I've made things like that. I gave some money to my kids and asked them to get extra couple weeks worth of food and water. And, I just think that those are prudent things, because so many people have seen what I think's coming. I would have thought it would have been pandemonium to a greater degree than it's been. I think it's remarkably calm. I think it's because people are praying. But I want to talk about what is this going to look like, because I don't want to just be limited at this time to talk about what Kim Clement saw, because one of the most fascinating stories that you should see, if you haven't seen it, is John Paul Jackson, and I'll provide a picture of this as well, when he talks about the perfect storm. It's like an hour-long video. He talks about all these things, and they're getting ready to happen, so many of them. And I got actually offended by that video when I saw it, because I think I saw it for the first time in 2020, because I didn't want to hear that it was going to last all these weeks. I thought the wealth transfer in my mind was just going to be gone. In fact, I was always worried it was going to happen so fast, I didn't know how I could move from one thing to the other. And now I pretty much know that the wealth transfer is going to last a number of years. It's very clear that Kim Clement says, I see a time coming It started in August. The outpouring of the Holy Spirit began in August. It increased. It was 3 months of pandemonium. And he references that time and again. It begins in 2005. He mentions it numerous times in '05, many times in '06, and again in '07. And, through the remaining years of his life, he would occasionally reference it. He always talks about the big E begins in the second year. He talks about Jubilee in the second year of this time. But I didn't want to hear it was 2 years. But now I know it's 4 years. And so we're going to have 4 years, but it's going to be so wonderful because we're going to be having an outpouring of the Holy Spirit, and it's going to be a time of the wealth transfer. And I think there's such a small percentage of the people, even some of the best Christians I know, are not choosing to participate in the wealth transfer. And I hope that they're ready with, having some extra food and water and stuff, because John Paul Jackson in The Perfect Storm talks about how seeds are going to be worth the price of gold. And I'm like, how in the world can that happen? I'm watching a guy who I really like to watch. One of my favorite speakers on YouTube is Jordan Peterson. And, he's a psychoanalyst, psychologist, and, there's a lot of videos. I don't know what comes up in your reels or whatever, but I don't watch videos on narcissism, but people talk about it, so they pop up, and, people accuse Trump of being a narcissist. But Jordan Peterson, interestingly, said Trump is no narcissist. He's very confident. He's very even egotistical, but he's not a narcissist because he hires better people than himself. He's not intimidated by amazing people. He goes, there's no narcissist that would bring Elon Musk into his team. There's no narcissist that would bring an opposing, a former Democrat like RFK into the circle. And is it Kelsey Gabbard? They're very strong, very knowledgeable, very passionate people, but it really is like superheroes. But RFK is super interesting because he's really, he's going to bring down big pharma, and he's going to bring down big agra, which is big food, because we have such unhealthy food. And, I'm learning more and more about the carnivore diet. I'm not going to sit here and tell you a whole bunch of stuff about it, but I will tell you I love it. I will tell you an interesting thing. I occasionally don't mind taking a weekend off, so I went to a really cool place in Oregon with some of our best friends last weekend, and so I thought, it's really hard to travel and eat this way, carnivore, ketovore. And so I just thought, well, I'm going to reward myself and, go off it for 3 days. What was really interesting is the swelling and inflammation I had in my knees. I couldn't see it, but I could really feel it. It really hurt to get out of the chair. And I thought, I remember it used to hurt, but I thought it was because I'd lost over 50 pounds. But it's actually because of the food interacting in my joints. And I can't believe that the FDA is allowing us to kill ourselves with all the carbohydrates that are a normal part of, the food pyramid diet. And so RFK is going to help fulfill prophecy in my expectation. And people are going to be wanting to grow their own food. And there's going to be, huge food shifts. And I thought, how can they do that in the free market without having, a dictator? But you know what I think they're going to do? And I don't know this. No, I'm not even saying I have a prophetic inclination toward it or anything. It's just that I think that RFK, after Trump is elected, and I don't think this is going to be a smooth transition, believe me, but we'll get to that. But I think what RFK is going to do is he's going to have the microphone to tell us the truth, and they're going to start funding true studies, and they're going to show how all the money, if you're as old as I am, you remember when the cigarette companies started getting sued, and $1 billion was such an unfathomable amount of money, and they started using private equity and their resources that they made through cigarettes, and they went after regular food, and they've made food addictive, and they've used the same things that addict people to cigarettes, because I don't believe that tobacco on its own is super addictive. I think they've made it that way. I think that nicotine is added to tobacco, and I'm no expert in all that. But, ketchup used to just be, mostly tomatoes. Now it's got so much sugar in it, it's ridiculous. There's all these things. I ate Doritos for the first time last weekend. Those things taste so good and are so bad for you, they should be illegal. I mean, holy smokes, I was reading the package. I was at a church event, and I thought, I haven't had Doritos since the summer, so I'm going to have a few. They were so good, but I mean, they're so bad. And it's so stupid to eat and invest in that. And we need to be educated. But what I think RFK is going to do is he's going to say, hey, you guys, here's what's really happening to you when you consume all this sugar, when you consume all these carbohydrates. Look at our average person and look like what they looked at like in the 70s before all this happened. And I think people are going to be running away from almost all of the fast food and the items. And I think our diets are going to change. I think people are going to want to grow their own food. I think we're going to get way healthier, way fast. But even cancer is brought about by a carbohydrate-induced, a sugar-induced diet. And people who eat lion or carnivore diets in Africa, naturally, they don't have cancer until they get on the food pyramid that we eat. And then when they start having all these carbs, cancer comes in and just consumes them. I mean, I can't believe how things are going to change. But when you watch John Paul Jackson, you're going to see him talk about, he even refers to a jubilee coming when you're going to want to prove that you've made the payments on different things. And I think he talks about silver prices exploding. And he talks about this is going to last a number of years where people are actually going to break into. He also does this thing on headlines where he sees crazy headlines that are going to happen. And this hasn't happened yet, but he talks about gangs of people are going to come in and attack food service companies when they're delivering to restaurants and stores. And I think in downtowns, I don't know that food, is going to be available the way that it was because they're not going to be able to safely deliver it. And people are going to have so little money with such hyperinflation. I think that's going to happen early next year. So there's going to be different perspectives when these crazy times happen. For those of us who are prepared, it's going to be really nerve-wracking, but it's going to be kind of exciting. I just think that we are on the edge of the craziest times. I don't think things are going to be peaceful. I think we are going to see, like Drew saw, rioting in the streets. I think we're going to see so many people have had dreams. And there's people who are going to be prepared, and there's people who are not going to be prepared. And, if you're not prepared and you're trying to survive it, it's going to be really scary. But if you are prepared and you're able to hunker down and you've got some food and you might have a generator, I don't know that you all could or all do, but I don't think everything's going to happen the same across the whole country. I think there's going to be worse places. I will tell you, I live right between Portland and Seattle. Those two places are going to be crazy. I'm not going to be going downtown in those places when it does heat up. And so, but I'm excited. Gold broke another record today. Silver is right up close to within our record of, I think it was within 50 cents today of the highest it's been in a decade. And so I'm excited. I think it's time to be ready. It's time to have some cash on the sidelines. It's time to be invested as you're able. It's time to have some extra food. That's what John Paul Jackson talked about. Have some extra fuel if you can. I don't know what your situation is. But be wise and be prayerful. And I'm excited. We are going to go through very difficult times, but I'm super excited. Kim Clement continually says, America, your best days are before you. America, you're entering your finest hour. I think it's going to be such an encouraging time. Kim talks about what an amazing Thanksgiving we're going to have. He goes, it's going to be like no other Thanksgiving in decades and decades. And so I don't know what all that means, but I'm excited. And I just thought I'd check in. I hope you guys have a great day. We will stay in touch. Lauren and I are finishing up the last bits of this book, and it's actually going good for me. And I just wanted to touch base with you guys, and I'm praying for you. Have a good one.